why you don't. Call the Bureau of Public Works regular meeting Wednesday, April 24th, 4 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Ask first for public comments, if there are any, on either agenda item or any agenda item, I should say. Any public comments? Neither here nor on the phone. Thank you. Item number 3, we'll take up the approval of the meeting minutes of April 10th of this year. I need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
No corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Please stand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good, thank you. Number 4, excuse me. Number 4, we're going to get an update on this so-called Arrowhead Gateway development. We do not have to take any action, but we do want to have the update given. So I guess, Scott, you or someone?
Yes, great. Scott Jellison, Jason Waterbury is going to give us a presentation on the project.
Thank you. Very good.
Jason Waterbury, Assistant Manager of Engineering. The Arrowhead development came to us back in January, but before I do anything, there we go, laser pointer's working. Just to put a little geographical context to it, this is High Street, Main Street. If we were at the ballpark would be kind of like south and east of here. 84, it would be at the bottom of the screen just off the page, just as some geographical context. The proposed development has 2 buildings. One is called Flatiron, one is called Arrowhead. They're being developed together as one team. The development includes about 7,800 square feet of commercial space and 39 residential units with an estimated flow of a little over 7,000 gallons per day. One of the key points in this part of this collection system for the district from a sewer perspective is that this is a combined sewer. And the combined sewer currently in a 1-year storm is 66% full. In a 2-year storm, it's 84% full. So obviously, if you project upward from there in a 10-year storm, which is our current DOT standard target, it is overfull. So in working with the developer, we've gone back and forth with them, but one of the first steps, and I'll go to the next screen for this, is that the developer in any development in the city of Hartford must first, before they come to us, obtain a approval from the City of Hartford Planning and Zoning Commission with respect to what's called 6.14. And in essence, 6.14 includes a couple main criteria, one being water quality, which is compliance with the Connecticut State Stormwater Quality Manual. The main objective there is to collect and treat the first 1.3 inches of rain. Then from a water quantity perspective, what that city regulation requires is a no net increase for a series of storms, 2-year, 10-year, 25-year, 100-year, so forth. If that site was at a site that did not have a combined sewer and had available drainage, the analysis from our perspective takes a different path from that point. But unfortunately, in this particular situation, it is a combined sewer. So at that point, we must look at how does that system, or how does that proposed connection relate to us with regards to a 1-year storm. The reason we look at a 1-year storm is that is our current CSO guidance in our consent order. So when we give that information back to a developer, the developer then takes that information and that changes how they design their site. I'm gonna go back for 1 second. On this slide, there are detention systems shown. Those on-site detention systems are designed to comply with 6.14 and that 1-year storm requirement that I just mentioned. The cost of said detention systems capital is $201,000. That does not include future operations and maintenance, which is another key point, which I'll get to. Now, keeping those 2 points in mind, looking at this site from through another lens, this site was actually the target of a future integrated plan separation project. The reason it was a target of a separation project is the bottom left corner of the screen, right about here, is CSO G19. G19 has a consent order requirement to comply with a 1-year storm. While that future project, which would have put a storm drain up High Street and actually up to Eli Street, which is a street on the cross from Main Street where High meets Main, that project was estimated that at that point in time back in 2018 in the integrated plan of approximately $2 to $2.5 million. However, it was not included in phase one, being that it was a lower priority and our focus in phase one was a lot of rehab work, and now our focus in phase one has actually shifted even more so to include North Hartford, as many of you already know. So you've got development in Hartford that is stuck with building a detention system for a little over $200,000 and then maintaining said detention system going future forever. And you've got the district, on the other hand, with a identified project for future separation that we don't have in our current phase one budget or plan. So the proposal and working with the developer back and forth was that staff reached was, what does it cost, what would the savings to the developer be if we remove that combined sewer criteria? Meaning the only thing they have left to comply with is the 6.14 criteria, which really at that point in time is focused on the water quality piece. If that piece of the equation was removed and working with the developer, it was their detention system capital cost comes down $105,000. So from that point in time, we then, going back and forth between us and the developer, said, okay, well, what if we built the part of that separation project? Obviously, this is actually an easier situation than others could have been, being that they're closer to that downstream end, which is near CSO G19. But what if we built the drainage for that CSO separation project up to the point where the development is, so that development could then tie in and not have to build the $201,000 detention system? The developer has already agreed that if we do that, they will contribute their savings, which is $105,000. To them, it's a capital wash to the construction of that drain. The biggest benefit to them is that they no longer have to maintain that system going forward. The benefit to the district is that now we're just proceeding along the path incrementally of getting stormwater out of our system. The proposal on the table from a capital perspective is to use accessible sewer funds to fund that 1.4 to 1.9 million, which is the first part of that drainage, which would be done from G19 ballpark area, which is, again, right about here on the screen, the bottom end of High Street, up to a point where the development could connect in. The exact route could be determined. We'd have to do some design work and whatnot and see what's there for existing utilities. But that design could start now. It would finish at the end of fall. It's not a complicated design, at least on the surface. It does not appear to be. And then the construction would begin early 2025 and be done in the summer 2025, which would line up with the schedule of the development and allow the development to connect. Yes, Scott.
Scott Jellison. So Jason, just talk a little bit about one of the other factors that we're considering on this project is it's not just this development. So there's going to be a streetscape project the city's going to initiate, and there's also 2 other developments on this street that we're expecting to move forward.
Yeah, Mike, you probably know better about that.
What are those developments?
See if I can point that thing and not
Mike will
blind
talk
anybody.
about that.
Is it this
The
thing?
parking lot area, right?
Oh, okay, see, so streetscaping up here?
Yeah, they're going to close off the road, I think.
Yeah, and so they're gonna, this open area, these are all parking lots right now, so it's kind of like Bushnell South back there. It could be potentially developed in the future. So this development we're talking about right now uses, if we allow them to connect the way they're connecting, they'll be using up 84% of the capacity of the sanitary sewer without a storm drain to take some of that relief. So,
The future developments on the parking lots, right?
yeah, in this area here, those open areas there could be developed.
So the important part of this development is we could say, and as we have said, the developer can build the 1,000 detention system. It complies with the city ordinance, the 6.14, and we're good. But the one thing that we don't want to do is, as we've said in the past, is under our ordinances, we cannot build a service, sewer service or water service, for the benefit of a sole development and then charge everybody else. So the whole purpose for the accessible sewer fund is for these kinds of projects. And so we're proposing, we don't need a resolution, but we're looking for, support and guidance. We're proposing to move forward with this project under the accessible sewer, build the project, so therefore it doesn't, under the accessible sewer, so it doesn't affect the clean water project rate. It doesn't affect ad valorem. And Bob Barron will decide, do we borrow money and use the accessible sewer as our debt service cash pool, or do we pay go? Bob will decide that and how we do that. But the fair thing is, and this is, again, credit to the city, this is another example of, we had Kenyon Street, same scenario. We had Albany Avenue Woodland development, same scenario, where the developer in Kenyon, I'm sorry, at least in Woodland, the city's the developer, but by this developer sharing in the cost of the infrastructure, it solves the problem. And we don't, as you know, for 2 years or so, we were going back and forth with the whole question about whether or not the developers had to comply with 6.14. Now the city is holding the developers accountable to say, you must comply with 6.14, and that's where it frames the need for $200,000 worth of detention. So the developer is more than happy to share in the cost rather than build the detention, because, as Jason said, you've got to maintain that over time, and there's an expense to that. And again, we don't want to have to rip up the street in the future for other development or our project because the city is doing streetscapes. So it's the timing is right, and it's a fair thing for us to do with the developer.
Commissioner Patel.
This is a win-win solution, and I think we should support it. This type of arrangement will be very helpful for us as a policy in the future. Thank you.
Commissioner Drake.
The ratepayer is still going to pay $1.9 million we weren't going to pay before. 1.4, 1.9. I'm not saying why ratepayers aren't paying for this, because they are. When it's done, I mean, he's saving $100,000, okay, with 105.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful for him. But I
Yeah,
may not be understanding, it's still $1.9 million the ratepayer's going to
The
pay.
accessible, Scott Jellison, the accessible sewer fund is cash, $18 million in there, and this is used. Anytime a developer does a project with the MDC, they have to pay for connection fees, and there's all kinds of assessments and all those things. And all that money goes into an account called the accessible sewer fund, $18 million. And we use that money to expand future developments. Because the whole concept of our ordinances, our sewer ordinances, you cannot expand the system for the sole benefit of a developer and then charge everybody else. So that's why the accessible sewer fund, that money comes from developers. That 18 million has
Doesn't
come.
come from the ratepayers, it's a fee from the
Correct.
developers.
Correct. It's all of our connection fees, all of the fees
enough.
that we
Okay,
have.
I understand
So,
that, okay.
so the decision Bob will have is, do I borrow that money or do I pay go? And we've got a couple of big projects that have been on the, waiting on the wings for
Not
years.
that If he borrows the money, who pays the interest on that?
The accessible
Same-
sewers fund will
same
pay
fund.
yes, same
Not come
fund.
from the ratepayer.
Yeah.
The developer's biggest savings is the O&M, because
Right.
he's paying $201,000 regardless, one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, and the answer is you have a development like this, and we say, okay, go ahead and build your $200,000 worth of detention, and 2 or 3 years go by, and then we have a failure of our system, and then we're digging up the street, and they just got done streetscaping it, and it's not, the timing one thing I gotta say, the credit to the staff, right? There's not too many organizations that can say, let's just build another $2 million project and just drop everything and move forward. But this is a timing issue. It's important. We're very happy with the city and the fact that they're enforcing their 6.14. And it's a positive thing. It's a very positive thing that the city is recognizing that 6.14 must be adhered to. So that's an incentive for us to work closely with the city.
Does that take care of Commissioner Drake's point? And we have also Commissioner, pardon me, we have Council Stone on the telephone, but go ahead, Commissioner DeBella.
You said there's 2 additional, is that the city streetscape you're talking about? Or do you have actual?
No, Scott Jellison, no, we've heard through the city that there's 2 additional possible developments on that street,
On the
in
street?
addition to the streetscape. They're gonna do the streetscape within this general area of the Arrowhead properties.
So that'll be up, near the stadium then?
Correct.
Can you put the map up there again?
Julie.
So
Oh, yes. Oh.
it'll be towards us,
So
right?
the additional development, we believe, is in this general area. So it's kind of between, this is Pleasant Street, I believe. So between Pleasant Street and High Street, those parking lots.
We got a lot of open lots up there.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the new police station is actually right
That's
here,
down in Atlantic.
right there.
Yeah, that'll open that whole area.
Commissioner DeBella, you're,
No, I said that'll open up that
Oh.
whole area.
okay. So I'm going to ask John to connect with Council Stone. Yep. Who's on the
I think
phone.
I'm connected, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chris Stone, District Council, and this is just for the record, and Scott and I have talked about this at length prior to the meeting. Scott, the work that's being done, whether it's paid by us or by the developer, but the work that's being prosecuted and paid for through the accessible sewer fund, in fact, benefits our sanitary sewer system by creating capacity. Is that correct?
Scott Jellison, yes, Chris, not only does it benefit, our system in that capacity, but it also, as Jason mentioned, it also is addressing a CSO overflow issue that we were planning to address, but was low on the priority, and then it got even lower on the priority because of North Hartford. But so it's going to solve a stormwater overflow, CSO overflow. So it's a huge benefit to us.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a series of questions, and if I could ask that we put the map back up for a quick second. And I just want to make sure that I understand this. And first, I want to state that I'm definitely in favor of this. I think it's wonderful that we're working together and collaboratively, and I really like this a lot. But I've got several questions on this. Number one, I'm assuming, would the work be done on High or Ann? Because when I saw the red line, I didn't know if it was High or Ann that the work is going to be done on.
So the ultimate endpoint is probably Ann here, but how it gets from the southwest corner to of High Street, which is where the CSO is and where the drainage outfall is, to that point has yet to be determined because we have to do survey work and design to figure out what corridor makes the most sense.
So you don't know if you, I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Manda continuing, so you might go up from Walnut to High and
I'll go to
then
this
over
map.
to Ann?
We could end up coming up High and then coming through this this little paper street alleyway. I don't know if it has a name, and then coming north on Ann. We could end up going all the way down Ann and then coming over on Church, I believe it is. Or obviously, if there's utilities in the way, we could be slightly off the road. Ultimately,
I'm sorry, wait, you said Church?
I think that's Church. Isn't that Church right there?
No,
Or is
no,
that
no, no.
Walnut?
That's Walnut.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got that mixed up. Walnut. Ultimately, the existing utilities are what's going to dictate where we can fit this storm drain.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, because there's a series of other questions.
Go right
So,
ahead.
with this development, I know that there's one going that's west of the Yard Goats in that
Yes, it's
vacant lot. It's not in the Arrowhead development,
right
it's
down here.
across the street from the Yard Goats. Would they be tying into this system, or are they routing a different way for their sewer?
There's other drainage down there.
Yeah.
There's other drainage down that way, which wouldn't necessarily be tied into this.
Okay, so it wouldn't be flowing this way.
No.
And I'm also curious, again, Commissioner Mandyke, the Pennant development, did they do retainage? Did they do a detention system on the Pennant development? Or did they tie into an existing separated sewer system already?
I don't know which one the Pennant development is.
The Pennant one is to the south of the Yard Goats, right next in between the Yard Goats and 84 that was just recently built. I'm just wondering if we
think they did
required, or if they did a detention system on that site.
That was a original DPA that was done for the
I'm sorry,
realignment,
DPA, you gotta help me.
developers permanent agreement that was done to realign Trumbull Street when the Yard Goat Stadium was built. They tied into connections directly that were left from that development, and there is no retention because it's a separated storm and sanitary system.
So I would assume, again, Commissioner Mandyke, if I could continue, Mr. Chair, so it goes the way that I'm understanding this, just to make sure I'm correct. A new development that would be west of the Yard Goat statement in the vacant parking lot right now, that would also tie into the same system over near the Pennant and would not be tying into this new separated system. So it already would tie into a system that's already separated to the south, correct?
So Dave Ruddy, Director of Operations. In theory, yes, they have not submitted plans for those connections. So yes, it's separated. Yes, they both flow down Main and down Trumbull, and they are separated in that area. That is not the same system. It's downstream of the system that they're talking about.
Okay, perfect.
If I may,
Can I-
could I just add to that? I'm sorry, Scott Schultz.
gonna get
just
me
'cause I
really
know you're
confused,
going,
Scott?
so I just want to just add to this. You know, this is an example, and it's really important, and I'm trying to be respectful, but it's really important for the commissioners to understand this. As Dave said, you know, you've got an existing lot that is an existing property, and so isn't this an existing property, but yet under 6.14, they were required to build detention, right? So this is really important because we've argued about this for 2 years. So just because something's existing doesn't mean it's going to be not going to be required to build some kind of detention system to comply with 6.14. And so the development that you're referring to, we have no idea what they're planning to do there. So
And
we
I was
don't,
just trying to look at the
Yeah,
Pennant.
okay.
Again, this is Commissioner Mandyke, and I guess just to follow that, so I understand 6.14, if I could, when do we say as the MDC that you do not have to do a detention system and we allow it to just hook in? Is that when we already have separated sewer and they can hook into that? Because if we
No.
didn't,
no, Scott Jellison. So
wanna make
this
sure
is
I
this is a
understand.
perfect example. This is a perfect example of the scenario that everyone's concerned about existing developments that were redeveloped, right? This is an existing development that's being redeveloped. We have 6.14 addresses, it follows the city ordinance, but also follows state guidelines for DOT and for a DPA, deep regulation. So there's two components, as Jason said. The deep component is water quality, and water quality is built into 6.14, and it basically says you got to capture the first 1.5 inches of rain, and it's not so much for stormwater flooding, it's for cleaning the dirt and debris out of the water before it gets to the pipe or gets to the outfall, wherever that's going. So you have to do that. That's why they still have to build $95,000 worth of detention on this site. We can't waive that. No one can waive that. And then the difference with an existing site, and I've said this before, but when you have an existing site, no matter what it looks like, in the old days, prior to it being redeveloped, the stormwater hit the site and it ran off wherever it goes. And it might go into our system on this street, it might go down the street, but the regulation, 6.14, which follows the state, says that you have to capture that on site for water quality, first 1.3 inch. It was 1 inch, it went up to 1.3, the new standard. And you have to store up to, as Jason said, 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100-year storm. So you have to do that. And so you can't let it run off on the sidewalk and down the street like it does on Pulaski Circle here, right? From Capitol Avenue. All the water that collects here in a bad rainstorm is coming from Capitol Avenue and Hudson Street. So this ordinance says you've got to capture it on site. That's being dictated by 6.14. And all as we're saying is that we will allow you to discharge some of that water, which reduces the amount of detention, but our system is designed for 10 years, so you have to retain at least the 10-year storm on site. And that's the delta between the 95 and the 105,000 in this case. So this is a poster child of existing properties being redeveloped in Hartford.
And that's fine. And again, Mr. Chair, if I could just finish my last two questions, if I could, just to complete my thoughts. Commissioner Van Dyke, I just want to make sure that we're looking out, and I know we have to look at what's in front of us today, but in this area, as I think other commissioners could probably allude to, there's a lot of talk about how that block in Arrowhead is being developed, and Ann Street may not be a street eventually.
Correct.
And so I just want to make sure when we're looking at things, because a grocery store has been proposed in this area, a much larger development, that we are just taking that into consideration as we are trying to provide feedback and input on how we're going to do this. Because again, I would assume that in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be other applications before this board for around this area. And in addition to that, another major developer is looking at the Rensselaer property right now as well. So I know this will come down. It looked to me, the way that it's routed is down Eli Street, right through that Rensselaer property. And I just want to make sure that we are prepared and ready to handle that as well. If there's things that we can tweak or look at, I just want to make sure that we're looking at it. And as far as the streetscape, and others correct me if I'm wrong on this area, I do not, and Commissioner Holloway might be able to help me out on this one, I don't believe the north streetscape proposal comes down that far. I think it ends before Sand School, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So unless there's a different streetscape happening around this area or within the development, maybe they're doing some streetscape improvement. The north Main Street streetscape is probably 3 to 4 blocks north still of this right now. So but the Greater Hartford Mobility Study is looking at that corner where you're going to start to go to, and they want to rejigger all that as one of their short-term projects. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate you.
The drain will be sized to account for any of that future development because it's all going to be assumed to be parking lot impervious area. So you can't create more stormwater.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're kind of keeping in touch with everything because there's a lot of moving parts in this area.
Further questions? Yeah, Commissioner DeBella.
Where does the existing 9184 run off the highway go now?
Ultimately, probably the northeast storm drain and or the North Meadows. I don't know off the top of my head. It would flow to the east, probably down to Calcutt Market area.
So it's captured there and then goes to
Yeah,
retention, the city's retention?
I don't know off the top of my head, Commissioner. I can look it up in email or screenshot it through John Myrtle if you want afterwards.
Sure. I mean, that's always been an issue, runoff of the highways, and it's got to be going someplace. We had that discussion.
Yeah.
And the old question is, what's the state of Connecticut doing to solve those problems?
Yeah, if I may,
Please.
Scott Chelson.
Yeah.
There's a history of DOT building off-ramps, Church Street and others. I was personally involved in the pump station behind the convention center, Keating Pump Station. So, and I've been in a lot of meetings with DOT and MDC and the city, and you know, the DOT doesn't want to take any responsibility of stormwater that comes off the highway. Once it comes off the highway, they don't want to know nothing. So, so it's a challenge for sure.
Well,
over
there's
years.
gonna be some kind of revision to that interchange.
Yeah.
I assume we're gonna have to deal with that issue relative to the city of Hartford, and MDC.
Well, we are, again, Scott Jellison, we've asked, not just on this project, but we've got a project right next door, which is 525. They're redeveloping 525. We've got the Bushnell South project, which we're trying desperately to get a meeting with DOT to understand what they're doing on Pulaski Circle. And so we're trying to coordinate that. I've got to reach back out to Mike Freemuth, but we need to know what DOT is doing in these areas, and it's been a little bit of a challenge, to say the least. So
Does it make sense that we go again through the speaker's office? We've had other meetings.
we may have to. We're not getting really any feedback.
Yes, Commissioner Patel.
Does it mean that DOT is totally uncontrolled and we don't have any mechanism to force them into joining the progress? Could we not initiate some type of legislative action on the part of the state requiring DOT to participate in this type of ventures? I don't think so. Just plug it up. And we could take a lead.
Yeah, we definitely need to, we need some interaction with DOT on a number of projects. The DOT is challenged a little bit right now with staffing levels, and they're also challenged with bonding capacity in the state of Connecticut. So, there's a lot of,
Yeah, I know.
confusion there. So,
But that's their problem.
I know.
In my opinion, we should start legislatively
I agree.
to work towards that goal. So that they are responsible, but we have number of streets everywhere, every town.
agreed.
Just to,
Further?
again, as we're on deep, where did we ever end up with the problem up on, next to the University of Hartford? What's that, is that Albany? Where we had the flooding?
Bloomfield Avenue.
Bloomfield Avenue.
Yeah, so,
We had a meeting about a year ago.
yeah, the old chairman, now vice chair, and I met with the Speaker's office and DOT
With his chief of
with
staff.
chief of staff, and we raised these very specific issues about DOT issues in the city of Hartford, Albany Avenue, Bloomfield Avenue, and what's the other one? Asylum, no. What's the other State Street?
Bloomfield and,
Bloomfield, Homestead, no,
not Homestead.
Granby?
no. Dave, what's the other state?
There was a side street.
No.
Albany.
Yeah, Albany, sorry, thank you, Albany. So we've raised these issues, and basically, you know, the issue is, and always is, DOT owns the road, and therefore they should own the storm system on that road. And as in 2004, through 2013, they've basically done nothing on Albany Avenue. The meeting that the chairman and I went to back when was, we had DOT again blaming MDC for stormwater runoff on the street, and my point to DOT was they recrowned the road. Well, the only reason why you'd recrown a road would be because you want to shed the water off the road, which means you're driving water to MDC's storm system. And we asked them, well, why don't you build a new storm system? And they said, well, there's too many conflicts in the road. We can't do it. There's too much conflict. I said, We got a solution for you. You build a new storm pipe, we'll build a new sewer pipe, so we'll get rid of the conflict. But the meeting went, we'll get back to you. And so that's where we are.
Into the deeper stretch. of
There is a
also.
history on that. At one time, DOT was ready. I think we were ready, but city made some changes. And DOT asked for some provision to make one street one way.
Yeah.
And there was a disagreement from development department of the city.
Yeah.
And as a result, that project and funding died away.
Right.
So this could be feasible and it can be done. I think we need to exert little more pressure.
I agree.
But could I just,
Please,
one last-
Commissioner DeBella.
I think it's an issue that we should pursue, given the fact that we've got the Speaker of the House from Hartford, and we also have the Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, where the bonding money comes from, and try to get some kind of cooperation with DOT. Maybe that's foolish, but we ought to get some kind of communications. What happened? We never got a response on what.
Yeah, we never got a response. We will follow up, though.
Anything further?
Yeah, John.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Gale.
Yeah, I want to return to Arrowhead for a moment and just express that it appears to me that this is government functioning and the MDC functioning and the private parties functioning in absolutely the best way. Everybody's working together to make this project move forward and take these hollowed out areas of Hartford that have been sitting fallow for 50 years in the case of these parking lots and some of that Arrowhead development and moving it forward, which is ultimately a benefit to the entire region. So I congratulate the MDC on its part in working with the other parties here. I think this seems like a great result. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Yes, Mr.
Commissioner
Chair, just, thank you, Commissioner
Van
Van Dyke. Just one last thing. I think either to this committee or the board, we really need to ask DOT to come in and do a presentation on the Greater Hartford Mobility Study, specifically their short and midterm projects that could potentially impact our timelines on things that we're doing as well. I think that, or even strategic planning they could present to. And I would also like to ask, if I'm not mistaken, don't we have through regional planning the authority to actually put some teeth on some of these items? I thought that's what we could use regional planning for if we needed to. So just, not that we have to have a discussion about it right now, but I just throw that out.
Thank you. Anything further? As I said before, we do not have to take any official action as a committee on this item. So if there isn't any further question to this subject, then we'll move on to number 5 regarding Windsor Locks sewer agreement. Again, we have Scott who will give us a little bit of an update, or other staff. I guess Mike Curley.
We do have a slide, just it looks like the overall project. There you go. All right, good. Mike Curley, Manager of Engineering. So what you're looking at the crosshatched areas, those are the 2 lots that were bought recently in December by SL Windsor Locks LLC. And when they did that, they were in negotiation for a while. Collins said, well, we have a water main going up our driveway, but you can't use it. And the only other sewer in that area is way to the right. It's in red there. It's the East Granby trunk sewer, which wasn't cost effective for them to reach. So at that point, they had to think outside the box, and they decided to, they requested to do a DPA with us to build 1,400 linear feet of water main and sewer line past underneath Route 20, going down to Rainbow Trunk sewer there. So we have capacity. We have a 24-inch sewer. So in order to do this project, we're going to need a separate sewer service agreement with the town of Windsor Locks. That's generally what it is. They're planning to, the two lots are one is 13.4 acres in size. It was office buildings, some testing facilities from Collins. It's now going to be turned into, I believe, warehouses. And the one on the right is a new building, and that's about 26 acres in size. So that's currently what they're scoping to build there. If there's any questions.
Good, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
please.
This is John Myrtle. It's not actually ready to go forward tonight. You'll notice in your agenda package, there was a resolution included that was talking about approving the agreement, but that agreement was not yet provided to you. We've been in contact with the town and the developer. We were hopeful that we would have an agreed upon agreement today, but that is not the case. So we did just want to give you some of the context. And as Mike had kind of explained, you'll notice the property, the thicker dark line, that's the town border between Windsor and Windsor Locks. We obviously are the Water Pollution Control Authority for Windsor, so we have the right to provide sewer service. We have other agreements that provide sewer service up to the airport, but this is a different scenario of potentially providing sewer service to particular parcels in a town where we are not the WPCA. So the proposed agreement that we will be bringing back to you is basically between us and the town for the ability to provide service, sewer service for these parcels.
John, did you calculate connection charges yet?
It'll be under the DPA.
Okay, so we don't know what that is yet. So if I may
Please.
discuss it. So this is just another example of where does the money come from for the accessible sewer fund, right? So these kinds of projects, the connection charges, we don't know what they are yet, but whatever they are, those are the kinds of revenues that will be used in the accessible sewer fund for future developments, so that the MDC customers don't have to pay.
Questions?
Commissioner Gale.
Any? Oh,
I have to move my chair around so I get better visibility over here.
give me a big wave.
So am I correct? This is just sanitary sewer that we're talking about?
No, water as well.
Okay, but
That'll go to the Water Bureau.
yeah, water, but we're not talking about stormwater. We're only talking,
No,
we're only talking about sanitary sewer.
correct.
So you don't run into this whole issue that we just discussed with stormwater and combined sewers and retention and all of that.
Correct. Our agreement is very robust to make sure that they design it to our standards so we don't get stormwater. No stormwater connections are allowed, so.
And this, second question, this development is in Windsor Locks. The sanitary sewer is in Windsor. Explain, and I apologize for not really understanding this. Why are we getting Windsor's approval? Is it our system? Why do we need Windsor's approval?
So let me just John can answer this, but Scott Jellison. So through a
Or do I have that wrong? It's Windsor Locks'
yes,
approval.
but through the years, we always talk about why do we serve water on some small streets in Cromwell? Why do we serve water or sewer service in New Britain? This is a perfect example. It's just cost effective for someone that's close to the border that is willing to pay the cost to connect to our system with the approval, obviously, of the board. And so it's these one-offs that are all over the place on the fringes of our system. So it happens over the years, in a lot of towns, Berlin and all those
No, I
places.
get that, but I understood that Windsor Locks was not prepared to serve the property. Did I get that right?
That's correct. They have no plans in the near future to serve that area.
So what approval are they
They have a water
Are they
pollution.
giving us? That's what I guess I don't really understand.
They have their own independent water pollution control authority that has jurisdiction within the town of Windsor Locks. So on the drinking water side, it's called an exclusive service area, but we can't just go into other towns and poach this. We can't just go offer sewer service in towns that aren't our member towns.
Got it, thank you. It's the poaching aspect.
Right.
And kind of the other piece, we kind of alluded to it again, there's an agreement with the airport. This property was owned by Hamilton, Sunstram, Collins, and then these were subdivided off. So these were part of an original parcel that had access to our sewer already, but now it's been split. It's a new owner, and it created kind of this unique situation.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit more here. Susan Negrelli. So because Windsor Locks isn't a member town, they don't get an ad valorem bill from us, right? So there will be a meter there, and we will charge them for every gallon of flow that comes through that meter.
Oh,
I like that.
Okay?
thank you. Added much more meat to it.
Commissioner,
Thank you.
Commissioner Drake.
Commissioner Drake.
This is sanitary sewer only, right?
That much?
Or some other stuff.
Yes.
Well,
The only reason I
this
say.
committee,
No, the reason I say is
Sanitary sewer.
those slots, actually just where the arrows are, if you go up and visit them, there's like millions of pipes sticking out of the ground where they're full of heavy metal up there, so we're not gonna get any of that, right?
hopefully not.
No, I'm just saying, I'm very familiar with that. There's pipes where nothing could be built there, and you see the plastic, you know what I'm talking about, you see where they test them, right where those arrows are.
Viton gaskets,
That's,
seriously.
we're doing sanitary only though, we're not
But
picking up.
no, we're doing water and sewer. But this committee is approving the sewer component.
Okay.
I make a motion,
Yes, Commissioner Patel.
I'm making a motion to adopt.
We
We
don't
don't
need action
need a-
tonight. The agreement,
Thank you.
we're waiting on final agreement back from the other side.
This is still on hold,
Yes.
incomplete.
We were hoping for the agreement tonight, but we didn't get it, so we figured we'd at least give you a heads up as to the project.
Okay, thank you. Unless there are further questions. The next item is number 6, regarding public comment. General public comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to number 7, Commissioners' requests for future agenda items. Any? Seeing none, I ask for the appropriate motion.
Well, I did hear
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Mandike.
Commissioner Gale, excuse me.
I did hear, thank you. I did hear Commissioner Mandike earlier suggest that she wanted something on a future agenda. So I hope that's adopted under this.
You would have gotten that, right?
I got it. I got a note.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Waiting for the appropriate motion.
Move to adjourn.
Mute, adjourn.